My wife cheated with her boss during our divorce, claiming she was just helping him move out of his mansion. Then I found out she secretly transferred $250, $0 from our joint account to his company, and now she's suing me for half our house, even though I just discovered she's been secretly feeding him money for years. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating during a divorce, but here we are. Weird part is, it all started with something so innocent, at least that's what she kept telling me. Her name's Lisa, and I married her thinking I'd found the woman I'd spend the rest of my life with. We had a decent life, a nice house, good jobs, and a future that seemed pretty set. But the cracks started showing a few months ago when she became more distant, more bitchy, and suddenly she was working late or helping her boss move out of his mansion, which she insisted was just a favor. Yeah, right. Looking back, I should seen the signs. The little things. The late-night texts, her phone always hidden, the way she'd get defensive when I asked about her boss. Mark, she claimed they were just friends, that Mark was like a brother to her. But I knew better, something was off. She'd always been a little bitchy about her phone, snapping at me if I looked over her shoulder or tried to see who she was texting. And then, the money. The first time I noticed something was wrong was when I saw a transfer of $10, $0 from our joint account. I asked her about it and she brushed it off like it was nothing. Said she'd been helping Mark with some legal fees or some business stuff. I trusted her, or at least I tried to. But then it kept happening. Small amounts at first, then bigger ones, 25, 0 here, $50, $0 there. I started to get suspicious, especially because she kept lying about where the money was going. She'd say she was investing in some new business or helping her sister out, but I knew she was lying. I could tell by the way her eyes darted when I asked her about her bank statements. She'd get defensive, say I was paranoid, that I was overthinking, but I was. I had a gut feeling, and it was telling me something was seriously wrong. One night I decided to check her phone. I know, it's invasive, but I was desperate. I needed answers. I found a bunch of texts between her and Mark. At first they seemed innocent, talking about work, about moving furniture, about some upcoming project. But then I saw the messages that made my stomach turn. Late-night calls, flirtatious messages, references to seeing each other later, and even some explicit sex talk. I couldn't believe my eyes. My wife, the woman I'd trusted, was sleeping with her boss, Mark, the man whose mansion she claimed she was just helping move out of. I felt numb. My hands shook as I scrolled through the messages. It was like a punch to the gut. All those times she said she loved me, that she was loyal, she was lying. She was screwing him behind my back, feeding him money, and sneaking around like a damn criminal. I confronted her the next day. I showed her the messages, the bank transfers, everything. Her face twisted. It was like she was caught in a lie she'd been spinning for years. Her reaction, everything at first called me paranoid. Said Mark was just a friend, that I was jealous, that I didn't understand her. She said I was just overreacting, that she was only helping him move out because she felt sorry for him after his divorce. But I knew better. I knew she'd been feeding him money for years, big chunks of our savings, money I didn't even know about. And now, with the divorce finalizing, she was trying to keep him close, keep feeding him, probably planning to take me for everything I had. The emotional was brutal. I went from shock to anger, then to deep sadness. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly a little lost. How could the woman I loved do this to me? How could she lie so effortlessly? I kept replaying every moment, every fight, every time she snapped at me about her phone or her business trips. I felt like a fool. And then I realized I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with it. Not just the affair, but the financial betrayal too. She stolen from us, lied to my face, and now she was trying to take our house in the divorce. That night I sat alone in my office, staring at the bank statements and her phone logs. I knew I had to plan my next move carefully. I wasn't just going to confront her and hope she'd change. No, I needed proof, a solid game plan. If she thought she could screw me over like this, she had another thing coming. I decided I'd dig deeper, find out exactly how much she'd taken, how long she'd been doing it, and make sure she paid for her lies. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything, especially not after what I found out. This was just the beginning. When I started digging deeper into her financials, I realized just how much she'd been feeding Mark behind my back. The $250, $0 she secretly transferred from our joint account wasn't just a one-time thing. It was part of a long, twisted pattern. She'd been funneling money into his company for years, probably under the guise of helping a friend, but it was clear she was more invested than she let on. The worst part, I discovered her lying about it every step of the way. Tell me she was investing in some startup or helping her sister's business, but the truth was she was lining Mark's pockets. I remember feeling this cold rage settle in. It was like I'd been punched in the gut all over again. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this, feed her boss money, and then turn around and pretend she was just helping out? I felt like I'd been played for a fool. Every conversation, every smile I thought was genuine, was just a mask for her secret life. I also found out about the lawsuit she filed against me for half the house. That was the last straw. She claimed I was trying to cheat her out of her fair share, but the reality was she was the one secretly feeding Mark money, manipulating the finances, and now trying to take everything I had. The house, our savings, everything. It was like she was trying to wipe me out entirely, all while pretending to be the victim. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I wanted to be prepared. I started gathering every piece of evidence I could find: bank statements, her phone logs, messages, emails. I even hired a private investigator to confirm the timeline of her meetings with Mark. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that this was a carefully planned betrayal. She had been feeding Mark money for years, probably to keep him happy, keep him quiet, or to buy his silence. One thing I couldn't understand was her attitude. She kept lying, kept spinning stories, and kept acting like she was the victim. She'd call me paranoid, say I was imagining things. But I had the receipts, the proof. Every transfer, every message, every secret call. The more I saw her desperation. She was trying to cover her tracks, but she was terrible at it. In the middle of all this, she started acting even more bitchy and defensive. She'd snap at me over small things, accuse me of snooping, call me insecure. I guess she was trying to keep her lies intact, but it was obvious she was panicking. I knew I'd hit a nerve, and I knew I had to act fast before she could do more damage. I couldn't let her walk away with our house, our savings, or her little secret life. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, angry, and deeply hurt. I'd trusted her with everything: my heart, my money, my future, and she'd just thrown it all away for some affair with her boss and a stash of stolen cash. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I didn't see what was happening right under my nose. It's one thing to be betrayed, but it's another to feel like an idiot for not noticing sooner. But I also realized I needed to focus on what I could do. I couldn't change the past, but I could control what happened next. I decided I wasn't going to let her get away with stealing from me and lying to my face. I started preparing for the divorce, making sure I had all the evidence I needed to fight her for everything she was trying to take. I knew she was going to fight dirty, but I was ready. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. That night, I sat alone in my house, staring at the mountain of evidence I'd gathered. It was overwhelming, but it also gave me clarity. I saw her for what she really was: a manipulative, selfish woman who'd do anything for her own gain, and I knew I had to do something about it. I wasn't just fighting for my house or my money. I was fighting to reclaim my dignity. I'd been betrayed in every way possible, but I wasn't going to let her win. Not without a fight. After I gathered all the evidence, I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't just sit around and let her keep spinning her lies or try to manipulate the situation further. I decided I'd go to a lawyer, someone who knew the ins and outs of divorce law and financial crimes. I needed a plan, something airtight that would hold up in court, especially since she was already trying to paint herself as the victim and me as the bad guy. The lawyer, a guy named David who had seen his fair share of shady divorces, listened carefully as I laid everything out. I showed him the bank transfers, the secret messages, the time she met with Mark, everything. His eyes widened as he looked through the evidence. "This is serious," he said. "She's not just cheating on you, she's been laundering money, possibly even stealing. From you, we need to act quickly if we want to prevent her from doing even more damage." He advised me to get a court order to freeze her accounts, especially the ones where she was funneling money into Mark's company. I also had to prepare for her to fight me on everything, including the house. She was trying to claim half of it, but I knew the truth. She'd been secretly siphoning money for years, and that should disqualify her from claiming a fair share. We also discussed how to handle her lawsuit. Her attempt to take half the house was a bluff, and I had proof she was lying about her financial contributions. While all this was happening, she kept up her act, pretending everything was normal. She'd come home, act like she cared, but I could see the panic in her eyes. I knew she was trying to spin her web, maybe even plan a counterattack. She'd been feeding Mark money, lying to me, and now she was trying to turn the tables. I wasn't going to let her do that. I had the evidence, and I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine. One night I caught her sneaking her phone into her purse again. I couldn't help myself. I grabbed it. There was a new string of texts between her and Mark. They were explicit, talking about their plans to meet up, about how she couldn't wait to see him again. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just an affair. It was a full-blown betrayal of everything I thought we had. I felt sick. How could she be so cold, so calculating? I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I was prepared. I told her I knew everything, that I had evidence, and that I was going to take her to court. Her face twisted into anger, then into a defensive mask. She spat back excuses, saying she was just helping Mark because he was in a tough spot, that I was overreacting, that I didn't understand her. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd seen too much, and I knew the truth. The next step was to file for a financial injunction, to freeze her assets and prevent her from transferring any more money. I also hired a forensic accountant to trace all the transfers she'd made over the years, every dollar she'd secretly fed Mark. The scope was staggering. She'd been feeding him money for so long, I wondered how I missed all of it. How did I not notice that the woman I married was secretly stealing from us and helping her boss cheat his way out of a divorce? Meanwhile, she kept trying to gaslight me, calling me paranoid, saying I was jealous, that I was making everything up. But I had the proof. I knew her game. I could see through her lies now. The more I realized she was panicking. I was finally seeing her for what she truly was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd do anything for her own gain. And I was done being her pawn. The emotional toll was intense. I felt rage, heartbreak, and a sense of betrayal that cut deeper than I ever thought possible. But beneath all that, there was a flicker of clarity. I knew I couldn't fix what had been broken, but I could fight to get what was mine and protect myself from her schemes. I was ready to go to court, to fight for my house, my money, and my dignity. Whatever it took, I was done being the naive husband she played. Now, it was time to stand up for myself and put an end to her lies. The court date was set pretty quickly, which surprised me. Turns out, when you have solid evidence of financial betrayal and secret transfers, the legal system moves faster than I expected. I had everything prepared: bank statements, text messages, the forensic accountant's report. I was ready to show that Lisa had been systematically draining our joint account to feed Mark, all while pretending to be innocent. The judge listened carefully as I laid out the case, and I could see the wheels turning. Lisa, of course, showed up with her usual bitchy smirk, trying to act like she was the victim. She was spinning her stories, saying she was just helping Mark out of kindness, that I was paranoid, that I was trying to control her. She even had the nerve to claim that I was the one cheating, that I was jealous and insecure. That was laughable considering I had all the proof right there. Her lies didn't hold up, and the judge saw right through her. In the courtroom, I watched her try to twist the facts, but her tone kept slipping, revealing her desperation. When the forensic accountant, confirming the extensive money transfers and their suspicious nature, her face lost some of its color. She knew she was cornered. The judge asked her directly about the transfers, about her relationship with Mark, and her attempts to hide money. She kept denying everything, but the evidence was damning. The judge ruled that Lisa was to be held accountable for the fraudulent transfers and ordered her to return the stolen money. They froze her assets, including the house, which she was trying to claim half of. I felt a small sense of relief, but it was mixed with anger. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about trust, betrayal, and the fact that she'd been lying to me for years. I also requested a full accounting of her finances to see if she'd hidden anything else. Meanwhile, Lisa's reaction was pure venom. She shouted, called me a controlling asshole, and accused me of ruining her life. But I didn't care. I knew I had done what was necessary to protect myself. The judge also ordered her to pay my legal fees, which was a small victory. I wasn't just fighting for the house. I was fighting to get back some sense of dignity after being played for a fool. As I left the courthouse, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I had won the battle, but I knew the war wasn't over. Lisa was furious, and I could see her plans to fight back, to try to ruin me even more in the process. I decided to move out of the house temporarily to give myself some space. I couldn't stand to be in the same place with her anymore. Her lies, her sneering attitude, her betrayal, it all had to end. That night I sat alone, reflecting on everything. The betrayal ran so deep. I wondered how I could have missed all the signs. I thought about the years of feeding Mark money, her lies, her bitchy attitude, and how I had been blind to it all. But I also realized I was stronger than I thought. I had the evidence, the law on my side, and a new clarity about who she really was. I'd never felt so betrayed and humiliated, yet somehow, I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I was finally waking up from this nightmare. Moving forward, I knew I had to rebuild. I had lost a lot, but I still had my dignity and my sanity. I'd get through this one way or another. I didn't trust Lisa anymore, and I didn't want her in my life. The house, the money, the trust, she'd taken it all for herself, and now she was paying the price. I just hope other guys out there see the warning signs before it's too late. Because once a woman like her starts lying, feeding her boss money, and betraying everything you believed in, it's hard to come back from that. But I was determined to try, even if it meant starting over from scratch. After the court's decision, I thought I'd finally get a breather. But Lisa wasn't done. She threw everything she had, more accusations, more lies, and even a few threats. Her lawyer filed a counterclaim, trying to paint me as the controlling, paranoid husband who was trying to ruin her reputation. It was classic gaslighting. She claimed I was making up the money transfers, that I was just jealous of her friendship with Mark, and that I was trying to keep her from her destiny. The woman was relentless, but I had the evidence, and I knew I couldn't let her manipulate the situation anymore. I started to see her real plan. She wanted to drag this out, drain my resources, and keep the house in her name. Her goal was clear. She was trying to keep everything she stole, and she was willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate to do it. That's when I decided I needed to take more control. I hired a forensic accountant to dig even deeper, to see if she'd hidden any other accounts or assets. Turns out she had a few secret savings accounts that she'd kept hidden, probably to hide her money from the court. It was a slap in the face, but I wasn't surprised anymore. She was a master manipulator. Meanwhile, I also started planning my next move. I hired a private investigator to follow her around, just to confirm her activities. I needed to know if she was still secretly feeding Mark money or meeting up with him behind my back. The pie caught her on several occasions, meeting Mark in some shady restaurants, exchanging envelopes, and even passing some cash. It confirmed everything I already suspected. She was still fully committed to her betrayal even after the court rulings. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle, but I also knew I couldn't stop. I had to keep pushing, keep fighting for what was rightfully mine. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep her lies went. She lied about everything: her feelings, her loyalty, her finances. I was angry at myself for trusting her for so long, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just about money or the house anymore. It was about my self-respect, my dignity, and my future. One night I sat in my apartment, exhausted from all the legal battles and betrayals. I looked at the pile of evidence I'd accumulated and thought about the woman I thought I'd married. She was cold, manipulative, and ruthless, capable of lying through her teeth and feeding her boss money for years. I wondered how I'd ever been so blind, but I also realized that I was finally waking up. I was finally seeing her for what she was: a liar, a thief, and a user, I decided that I'd push through no matter how long it took. I was going to get a clean break, get full custody of the house, and make sure she paid for everything she'd done. I wanted her out of my life for good. I also started therapy to deal with the emotional damage because this kind of betrayal leaves scars. But I knew I was stronger than I thought. I'd survived her lies, her betrayal, and her manipulations. Now I was just focused on rebuilding my life piece by piece. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but I also realized that some people are better at hiding their true selves than others. The lesson I learned is simple: trust is fragile. Once it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair, especially when someone is willing to lie and cheat their way through life. If you're in a similar situation, don't wait until it's too late. Protect yourself, gather evidence, and fight for what's yours. Because in the end, the truth always comes out, sometimes sooner, sometimes later. And when it does, you better be ready to face it head on. By the time everything was finally settled in court, I felt like I'd been through a war. Lisa's lies had completely, and the judge awarded me full control of the house, ruling that her financial misconduct disqualified her from any claim to half of it. The court also ordered her to pay back the stolen money, plus my legal fees, and imposed restrictions on her financial activities moving forward. Honestly, it was a relief to see her face when the judge handed down the verdict. Her smugness had turned into pure panic. Aftermath was a mess, but I was relieved to be free from her manipulations. I moved out of the house, got a new place, and started the long process of healing. I had to rebuild my trust in people, especially women, after being betrayed so badly. But I also learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust is a fragile thing, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair. I realized I should have listened to my instincts earlier, but I also learned that you can't ignore the red flags forever. When someone is feeding their boss money secretly, lying about their whereabouts, and gaslighting you, it's time to face the truth and act. Looking back, I see how Lisa's greed and manipulation drove her actions. She didn't just cheat on me. She stole from us, lied to my face for years, and used her charm to keep me in the dark. Her bitchy attitude, her constant lies, and her willingness to betray everything we built, those are the things I'll never forget. But I also see how I was naive, trusting her for too long, hoping she'd change, or that the truth would somehow come out naturally. In reality, the truth only came out because I took control, dug deep, and refused to back down. Now I focus on moving forward. I know I'll never fully forget what happened, but I won't let her define me. I've learned that the biggest betrayal can also be the biggest wake-up call. It forced me to what I want in life, what I deserve, and how to protect myself from people who only care about themselves. I'm more cautious now, more aware of the warning signs, and more determined to find someone who values honesty and loyalty. To anyone reading this who might be going through similar hell, trust your gut, gather your proof, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. The truth may be painful, but it's better out in the open than buried under lies. And in the end, integrity and self-respect are worth more than any house, any money, or any fleeting relationship built on deception. I've come out of this battered but stronger, and I know I'll be okay. Because sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones that teach us the most about who we really are.